There is nothing that will repel a toxic person faster than you operating as your authentic self. Most people attach themselves to people they can utilize for a purpose, a reason, whether that's emotional exchange, physical exchange. Nowadays, it's more popular to attach yourself to people for financial exchanges for different reasons. But even then, it's rare that you find people who operate in their authenticity. Most people are characters built off of their experiences, their traumas, fueled by their desires, their lust, the lust of their eyes, the lust of their flesh, and the pride of their life. And everything choice they make, the people they connect themselves to, is an association to this, which ultimately, at some point, falls apart because it's unauthentic to who they are. And at the core of every individual, first is the Spirit of God, the breath of life, and then is our experiences, our flesh. And with our flesh comes the physical nature, the animalistic nature, the nature to preserve our own interests. So for someone who it puts the value of sex or emotionalism and things like that first, depending on the person, is going to be the measure of how much they put into these things. And that's going to fuel what they look for, what they cultivate, and what they expect from their partners. But when you get to a place of being authentic to yourself, knowing yourself, loving yourself, and being true to your own nature outside of your experiences, you will notice that you draw a lot of people to you. Some that are kind and maybe have brokenness and they just need someone to help encourage them. Others that are more toxic and want to break you for whatever their reasons or purposes are. Or maybe even some that see you operating in your authentic self, and they, in their hearts, they celebrate you, but on the outside they have to hate you because they resent you for the very things they love about you. And this is why they often say, usually people that hate you really love you, but they don't know how to express it, or they are afraid of all of that is within them, because it naturally starts to create a conflict within their ability to preserve their sense of self. And if that's rooted in their ego, then it will be hard for them to celebrate other people if there's not a benefit to them. Therefore, people that are rooted in ego oftentimes don't really love people. They only find people to be tools and useful for a purpose in their life. So as soon as you become unuseful for that purpose, or as soon as you start to outshine the master, so to speak, in regards to your position, because you are an object, not a person with depth, they will naturally look for ways to eliminate you, to cut you off, to assassinate your character, to cast a shadow over you. But when you're a person who walks in or starts to operate in authenticity, you'll usually bounce back from that. And this is why. The strength any of us need is already within us. It's just a matter of recognizing it and being able to operate in it so that we can, because ultimately we all have our own keys to set ourselves free. Oftentimes we are prisoners to our experiences because of the traumas and the experiences trapped in our minds. And we start to create a life and a character fueled by these experiences, which is inauthentic to ourselves. And oftentimes this is fueled also in the environment. Your environment can cultivate within you a form of inauthenticity as well. If you are in an environment that's fueled by stereotypes or expectations for you to play a role that is not genuine to yourself, because of the mentalities that are prevalent in those places, you will often sometimes be sabotaged to stay in a place of lowering yourself. And this is why, or this is the idea of the black sheep. Sometimes you have to separate yourself from the group or your family when you notice the toxicity, so that you can learn to be more authentic to yourself. Because a lot of people are offended at authenticity because it causes fear within them. Your ability to thrive and survive without the need of their opinion, or allowing them to have provision over how you see yourself, for some people will offend them, because understand this, their power lies in their influence. And the only real influence they have is an idea. It's an illusion. But when you operate from a place of growing and developing and cultivating influence over yourself, as to determine who you are and what you want for your own life, and not allowing your experiences, which you have been a bystander in at times, to define who you are, this may offend a lot of people. Other authentic people will celebrate you because they understand the journey, because they are on their own. While there are some that will be offended at your ability to operate in freedom, the freedom of peace of your mind, the freedom to thrive in yourself, the lack of a need to be validated by those outside of yourself, regardless of their gender, because there's an expectation as a woman, women want to be validated by men, and as a man, men want to be validated by women or other men, and vice versa. And this creates competition, and all competition is just rooted within self-preservation, which causes fight or flight. You get anxious when you're around somebody who causes you to feel insecure, or you see something beautiful about another person, and instead of being able to celebrate it, recognize it, and honor it, by simply doing a compliment or something, you naturally, freeze up, and you start to look at ways or find ways to pick them apart. That's jealousy, and that's envy, and that's rooted in your need to preserve yourself, because somewhere along the line, people have developed an attitude that they cannot be good as long as there's someone else who is good around them. Rather than recognizing that everybody has their own talents and gifts and blessings that we were given from God within ourselves and outside of ourselves, some untapped, that can be beneficial when shared with others out of love and kindness, because according to scriptures, we're supposed to be like brothers and sisters in the spirit, right? But anyway, keep operating in your authentic self. People are going to try to attack that, because you may have other people who don't see themselves outside of the opinions of others. And in regards to you, if you don't participate in their competition or the competition they've created in their minds, which is only fueled and validated by those that enable them at times to continue up toxic behaviors, to participate in creating contentions, dividing people, as well as trying to create a environmental sense of distortion in order to fuel the false narratives. You know what I mean? If you don't participate in that, it's not uncommon that you're not met with backlash, because people need you to operate within your mind and within yourself outside of your authentic self in order for them to have an upper hand. This is why there are so many tactics to manipulate people, because all manipulation is a way to draw someone out of their authentic self, whether they are self-actualized or on the journey or they are in their lowest nature, but it's a way of provoking you to feed into a narrative through emotional exchange that has been created by somebody else's intent outside of yourself, which is authentic, which is ultimately inauthentic to yourself. Because if left to your own devices outside of the influence, the dynamics by which you feel and operate would be highly different. So this is how you know that what you're dealing with is an environmental circumstance and not you. But when you don't learn to separate yourself outside of your feelings and your emotions in any given situation, you can start to internalize and identify the things in your environment as yourself. And so this is how people are open to manipulation, because instead of recognizing, for instance, that you're dealing with somebody who is gaslighting or somebody who is intentionally using strategy to push your buttons, to get under your skin, or to create reasons for you to respond negatively to your environment, you may internalize that because you don't know how to recognize it, maybe because you don't know the difference, and you will start to feel as if maybe you have a problem. And there may be instances where it is an internal problem, by which that's what the dark night of the soul is for. You need to do the self-work to grow, to learn, and cultivate yourself. But there are also times where it's not a you thing, it's an environmental thing. And as long as you're in that environment, under those dynamics and circumstances, you will always react in that particular way. And there are some people who are aware of this, and they will utilize that knowledge against you, because knowledge is power. Some use knowledge for good, and others will use knowledge for evil. But it depends on the person, and it depends on their own convictions, their morality, the intent of their heart and what is important to them as individuals. Because any given time, a person that chooses to do good can choose to do evil. Just like someone who does evil can choose to do good. We all do good and evil. But what I'm saying is someone who ultimately has a conscience of that is rooted in a high level of morality or righteousness, versus somebody who lacks the consciousness of righteousness and lives pretty much like an animal in their dealings with other people. So that's what I mean. But regardless of what you deal with or where you're at, don't forget to be authentic to yourself. People will try to attack you. They will try to cause you to stumble. They will try to throw you off. But it's all an attention thing. You have to operate from the freedom of your own consciousness and not to lose yourself to the influences around you, because we are surrounded by influences, whether that's in technological means, because some are a little more righteous and some are a little more wicked, scientific or religious, theology. Everybody's at different places in their life, and I am not anyone to tell anyone they're in the right or the wrong place, because I understand your journey and your truth can only be as authentic to you as you experience it and as you believe it for yourself. Therefore, some people, we all share different beliefs, but you can't tell nobody who believes in something that their belief isn't true, because whether it's a truth or a lie, according to our own standards or our own beliefs, it's still true to them. And this is why it takes to understand, to give understanding, to be understood in any situation, so that you are able to be like-minded with those that you may desire to reach in any given situation. This is how you're able to cultivate healthy relationships, and how you can create genuine relationships. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. Just remember to stay true to yourself. Don't let things in your environment, because sometimes people will try to pressure you to get out of your character. They will set up all different methods and ways, whether it's emotional, psychological manipulation. Some will even do physical manipulation. They may try to physically manipulate your senses, your body, distortion. They'll try to distort things by the use of distortive tactics. This could be visual, audible, whatever, to get under your skin, to persuade you to operate outside of your best interest and within the context or a character and a narrative that they have created, so that they can character assassinate you. So this is why staying true to yourself, being light and easy in circumstances, not losing yourself in life and circumstances, because each day new things arise and we don't always have the answers right away to deal with them. Some things we have to take the long way through and not around. And we have to go through a measure of suffering in order to gain the wisdom through the experience. And it sucks and it's not fair, but know that this is God's way of working out all things for our good, because maybe it was meant for evil, but ultimately good will come from it as long as you're trusting in God. And what I mean by trusting in God is, whether you believe in God or not, God is there, and God's plan is always at work around us. So those that think that they are doing evil and they're getting away with the evil they may do toward you, know that even them are a part of God's plan, whether they recognize and acknowledge that or not. They just don't have the conscience to recognize, to accept that, or to acknowledge that, but they still are ultimately just a pawn on the chessboard. So while you're on your journey learning to be more cognitive, as well as learning to have more self-accountability, just remember to stay encouraged. There's a lot of people that you may encounter that aren't on that journey, and some will move around and some will try to place themselves in your way. But know that that's also a part of the journey. It may not be the best part. It's not the part that's fun. It's not the part that produces the most peace, but it is the part that teaches you the greatest lessons, which ultimately will strengthen you in your mind and your spirit and your character, and create within you the wisdom that you otherwise wouldn't have if you hadn't gone through those experiences. So one day looking back, although those people thought that they were being troublesome to your life and tares in your life, you will be grateful, because little did they know they participated in making you a better person. They participated in you being the person that you will become through your experiences, as long as you keep moving forward and don't lose yourself in the confusion and the cognitive distortions and the emotional, psychological methods of abuse. Because when you're dealing with abusive people, they're going to abuse you, but in essence, they want you to abuse yourself. This is why they try to create triggers, because what a trigger is even when the person is no longer under the circumstances where they're being conditioned through the trigger being paired with unfavorable circumstances or circumstances that causes a person distress or physical pain, literal pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, whatever. They will still have the memory locked in their psyche, and they will start to abuse themselves because they have trauma rooted within their psyche. And this is what the dark night of the soul is for, as well as educating yourself on tactics of abuse so you are able to recognize them to help you strengthen yourself so you don't internalize things and start to abuse yourself along with your abusers. Because there are some people who like to abuse, like that song says. Some of them want to use you, some of them may want to be used by you, and some of them want to abuse you, and some may want to be abused. That's a very real thing. My father told me about that a long time ago. Everybody has a measure of sadism and masochism to different levels. Some lean more toward one area or another, but ultimately the best place is to have balance in between. If that makes sense. Give and take. Life is about giving and taking. It's the same thing. But anyway, I'm making this message to encourage people. Remember, get in nature. If you deal with environments and situations where you constantly feel like somebody's trying to pull the rug from under your feet to try to hinder you or try to throw you off, get out in nature. Nature is where you will help you find your authentic self. I don't know if it's because my personality that I feel this way, but I genuinely do believe that when you get out in nature, you can get closer to your authentic self. You're away from other people's energies, environments, you know. Yes, you encounter people out here, but, you know, simply just be kind. Hello, how's it going? You don't have to sit and talk with anybody. And it's the same as going to the gym. Sometimes when you take people with you, it can be a distraction. So there's nothing wrong with going by yourself, because when you go, do it for you. All right, this is Nikki with the sauce. Remember, be your authentic self, and don't let anyone take your mind off of who you are and place it on who they want you to be made out to be, because they'll do that. And when they do that, it's usually tied to their need to have a form of dominance over you. They want to dominate you. Now, when people dominate, they usually use fear and intimidation, and that leads to domination because you yield yourself under their authority. That authority may just be their opinion. That authority may just be the idea that they may want to or try to do something bad to you or someone you love, so to speak. But regardless, at the end of the day, it all leads to domination. So don't allow anyone to dominate you, because the one thing you have free in this life is your psyche. And even that is influenced, and our conscience is continuously seared and manipulated and surrounded by evil communications, which corrupt good manners according to Scripture. Because we are in a world that is not fueled by the morality and the righteousness of a creator who is love, but more so fueled by people's need to preserve their own needs, senses, wants, and desires, lust of their eyes, lust of their flesh, and the pride of their own lives. And because of that, there may be conflicts. Because simply you existing, walk in your authenticity, and walking in peace may be in direct conflict with somebody's idea of their ability to preserve themselves. All right, so take care. This is Nikki with the sauce. Be well. Thanks for listening to this long video. And happy holidays, you guys. Take care. Love on the people that are around you. And all right, be great. Peace.